Okay, so in 2 paragraphs, we go from order delays to doxing. Oh my god, accidentally Dude, I thought I was reading about toys for little girls. How the US Navy genetically engineered an animal to only feel pain. What is this place? Slip slap. I'm SlappyPat. Welcome to Internet Buried Treasure, where I find old, obscure, and forgotten content on the internet and give it to you raw and wriggling. Today, we're diving headfirst into a Reddit community that cares about 2 things and 2 things only. Did some crazy shit happen? And can you tell us about it in a way that doesn't sound like middle school fan fiction? We'll take a look at some of the best posts on there and discuss why this subreddit could be a bastion of human hope when all you see on the internet now is AI slop this and passive income that. And then I'll put it on my proprietary tier list to see how it holds up in a world that keeps trying to speed run your attention span. So join me, cadets, on this cosmic search for internet buried treasure. Like all good things in life, r/HobbyDrama came to me as a targeted, suggested groups post fed to me by a ravenous algorithm, hungry to keep my engagement growing, so I keep viewing their ads and ensure I never, ever even think about uninstalling. Like all good things in life. It has one of those names that just describes itself perfectly, like you just instantly get a grasp on what the vibe is here. In this case, it's a place to share sordid tales of epic triumphs and catastrophic downfalls, and spill the hot, juicy goss of whatever niche hobby or interest you have. You want to talk about neurodivergent, hyper-focused special interests? Brother, this is your divine paradise. This post is about the election of the student government of one specific school in one specific town for one specific year. Yeah, this only covers the 2022 election. I heard season 2 is way better. This one is about French literature prizes, like anyone gives a shit about people who care about what the French think. And there are plenty of posts about all the normal pop culture hot topics too, like video games, a lot of video game coverage, but also K-pop, anime, comics, TV shows, movie, chess, football, you name it. But even with the more well-known topics and stories, you're still getting an incredibly indulgent, citation-riddled dissertation of someone with an abundance of both free time and autism. What makes it work so well is that, in stark contrast to the modern internet, this community has a huge degree of focus on quality. Your posts have to be sourced extensively. It can't just be your hot take on what occurred in the, let's see, competitive sauna bathing community. What the f? There's literally a rule that you have to be detailed and explain everything. The best posts are the ones that give you all the knowledge you need to understand the drama in the first place, and then slowly reveal the glorious consequences. Oh my god, it's so f***ing addicting. It's not fun if no one knows what's going on or why your drama mattered, so everyone tries really hard to make a good write-up. There's like a point of personal pride to it, right? Like, this is your chance to shine a spotlight on your special interest, to represent your community that usually no one would ever give a shit about. You want to make it good, you want to rep your team. So unlike the rest of the internet that just hungers for clicks and engagement endlessly, only like one post every day or 2 gets approved here by the moderators. And with the pride that everyone feels for the write-ups, there's almost like a natural barrier to entry as well, where like, if you don't actually have the ability or the passion to write something worthwhile, you're not even gonna bother, because it's just gonna be so obvious in comparison. In fact, you're not even allowed to write about your drama if it's currently ongoing or if it's been less than 2 weeks since it finished. No half-ass post from tourists cashing in on that sweet karma from a recent viral TikTok. No posts that need to be constantly updated because shit is still going down and no one can follow along. Quality over quantity. Human creativity first. Yeah, the topics might be a little self-indulgent and the writing can get a little overly excited and pretentious at times, but that's just the nature of the content. It's not really what you're coming here for. You're here for the drama. The hobby itself is almost always irrelevant. It's all about the social interactions in these niche communities. It's about seeing a world you've never heard of before through the eyes of an expert. Boy, I wonder why I like it so much, huh? It's all about the theatrics, the crazy people who go on power trips because they're the sole moderator of a niche forum of 50 people. The kind of stuff you read and think, how the fuck could anyone care this much about something this stupid? And then sometimes it's about the bitter woes of betrayal and something as innocent as, let's see, the small penis humiliation Discord community. Shit, I better renew my membership. I have a deep, sensual love for video games. It is my birthright for being a heteronormative white male. But my favorite posts aren't even about video games. They're the dozens of posts about horse girls losing their shit and the bizarre history of hobby tunneling and audio. I guess the fundamental concept of audio, I guess. I didn't know that had a fandom. If the internet can get me invested about replacing the fake hair of one specific brand of discontinued doll in the early 2000s with fake hair of slightly better quality, and the drama that somehow unfolds from that group of like 14 total people, then I think we might have a chance against the brain rot slop polluting the web right now. She faked her own death. You guys, that like happens a lot, actually. This person referred to it as pseudocide, and I'm pissed that I can't pass that off as my own joke. That's so fucking perfect. And you're probably thinking, hey Pat, you shrimp-dicked moron, a community with 1.4 million members doesn't exactly scream obscure. Hold up. I'm ignoring that first part, but here's how I think about it. The internet has become so humongo-mungus, so comically large, with years worth of content uploaded every single day, not just to YouTube, mind you, but to Reddit, Facebook, obscure internet forums in other countries, self-published websites you have no chance of coming across organically, but have a few hundred people completely devoted to them. And you'd never even know. There's literally no way you could ever see everything being posted every second of every day. It's almost like 1 million people isn't even an impressive number anymore. When we're talking about things like Facebook having more downloads now than there are total people alive in the world. Some random TikTok from an account with 50 followers will go viral and get 100 million views in 2 days, while the rest of their videos get a few thousand views combined. Just on YouTube alone, there are hundreds of channels with more than 1 million subscribers that I've never even heard of before, and I'm on this shit every single day. You used to be able to like name all the big YouTubers off the top of your head. You could like talk to someone on the street about YouTube as a concept and not just a specific one channel, because there were only a handful of channels that even got any widespread attention in the first place. It was crazy. So to me, this qualifies as internet buried treasure. When other huge subreddits are getting spammed with the same lonely virgins asking if sex feels good 1,000 times a day, when the dead internet theory feels more and more real every single day, r/HobbyDrama stands as a champion for high effort content, and you might have scrolled past it without even realizing it. So I'd like to show off a few snippets from a couple of my favorite posts. I won't give away everything because I literally can't. Each post would have its own video to cover everything, but hopefully you can get a sense of what I appreciate about this community. Slip Slam. I'm SlappyPat, your cosmic tour guide into the obscure and abandoned corners of the internet, where we seek out buried treasure with a critical but appreciative eye and discover just what made it so important. First off, if you filter by the top posts of all time, you'll have an endless supply of quality content you can read on your lunch break. Each one of these is so captivating to read. One of my favorites in these top posts is this drama in the Ejection Systems community, apparently, like for fucking fighter jets. This one is so niche that it not only whittles down to specific engineers in the military who fix jets, of which there aren't very many to begin with, but apparently these jet mechanics also have a dozen subcategories as well, like people who only work on the fuel lines of the jet, people who only work on the wings, even people who only work on the fucking tires. And here I was thinking that the whole point of a plane was to get off the ground, silly me. Anyway, for this super specific category of mechanic, apparently at the time this post was written, there was only about 1,000 people in the entire world who worked on the ejection systems of these billion-dollar fighter jets. And a huge problem arose when a small bolt was missing from the cockpit dome of one jet. A bolt that was apparently so important that it got all 1,000 of those mechanics across the entire world on a Zoom call trying to figure out exactly what that bolt was even for. Apparently none of them actually knew. God bless the troops, man. And of course, the entire time, the officers and the brass are fucking furious because they're starting to look bad, and they're asking what's wrong with the jet and who's to blame, and you can't really shift the blame anywhere else because who the fuck else works on this stuff? It's just you. And you're trying to stall for time because your best answer is, I don't know. How do you think that went down? So, what do you do when you've already expended the entire sum of human knowledge on a piece of military equipment and you still can't figure out what to do? You're out of options. You call a civilian contractor. Yep, that's right. This story takes a classic turn where the entire world rests on the shoulders of one man who could not give a shit less about the military, and he's only there for the planes. And that concocts the perfect storm of military incompetency, officer ego, and literally the only person in the world, the only one person who might be able to fix the problem. Absolutely worth the read. This one stretches the definition of hobby pretty far, but given the hyper niche content, it well deserves one of the top posts. Another one that I want to talk about in detail is a post regarding this video.
Ready? Janken!
Why the f would anyone care this much about a game of rock, paper, scissors? Well, if any group of people was going to, it would probably be the Japanese. And I love it. I don't care much for idol groups myself, but there's a reason so many people do, healthily or unhealthily, and that kind of thing is going to be ripe for drama. There are like 1 trillion idol groups in the world, each one with their own drama, but this situation focuses in on just one, AKB48. Before this post, I had at least heard of AKB48 in passing, and maybe you have too. They're literally the best-selling female musical group of all time in Japan. And if you know anything about these idol groups, you know they churn through girls so quick to keep everything new and fresh and rake in all the money that they can. In fact, at certain times, this idol group has swelled to over 120 concurrent members. There are horror stories everywhere of abuse and negligence, super strict lifestyle restrictions on your diet and love life and free time for these girls, money not being paid out to them, and honestly, most of the time, it kind of sounds like being an idol is just being enslaved with extra steps. This time, though, the story isn't quite so dark. Someone has to be the face of every idol group, like the Justin Timberlake of Kawaii. It's a whole big thing with fans voting for their favorites and the agencies pushing the idols that they think will sell the most singles. It reminds me of how Camila Cabello was the only one to come out of Fifth Harmony with an actual career, if you want to call it that. Anyway, being the face of the idol group is a prestigious thing that can launch you into international stardom, and this time, it was settled through rock, paper, scissors, of all things. This is an underdog story that only the manic excitement of a Japanese announcer could convey, where a consistently overlooked member who is about to age out of the group finally gets her chance at the spotlight through a completely random game of rock, paper, scissors. It's like a fucking anime, and she becomes a champion figurehead for all the idols who get pushed to the sidelines, whose names you never remember. It's very well written, and it introduces all the concepts you need to know to understand the stakes, even if you know nothing about idol groups at all. Absolutely worth the read. And finally, there's the story that I teased in the intro about the genetically altered animals that could only feel pain. In the strictest sense, this is not clickbait at all. It's factually true, but the stakes aren't nearly as high as the title would lead you to believe. Nevertheless, this is my favorite hobby drama post of all time. I don't want to spoil anything about this post, but I just can't help myself. So if you'd rather read the post yourself before finishing this video, feel free, I'll have a link in the description. It's definitely worth it. It revolves around a community of people playing a Sims-esque video game in the mid-90s who treat their virtual creatures, called Norns, like their own real-life children, and one man who wanted to take the piss out of all of it. And I kinda gotta agree with him, you know? When you see people being happy, you just gotta tear them down sometimes, you know, teach them a thing or two, take them down a peg, tall poppy syndrome and all that. This man took it upon himself to correct these people, and it's hard not to root for him just a little bit, despite the crazy shit I'm about to show you. It is a bit silly to emotionally bond this hard with virtual creatures that have no actual feelings. But on the other hand, the game did brand itself as not just creating AI, but virtual life with a survival instinct, so I kinda get their side as well. The game focused heavily on the fact that these Norns could feel things like pain and pleasure and a spectrum of emotions and desires, and that's how they learned to interact with the world. They would take actions to avoid pain and maximize happiness, as well as managing their own hunger and thirst and entertainment values. Keep that in mind. Anyway, it goes like this. In the mid-90s, people were playing this game called Creatures, which was like The Sims mixed with the social elements of Spore. You couldn't control your Norns directly, really, but you could teach them language. You could reward them for good behavior and punish them for bad behavior. And eventually, they would take all the stimuli they received as they explored the world and breed new Norns that would take on the traits of their parents and then repeat the cycle. If you didn't teach them the language, they wouldn't be able to socialize and they would become sad. If you didn't teach them to avoid poison, they would eat weeds and die. If you didn't reward them enough, they might never learn how to defend themselves from the enemy tribe of the Grendels. It was a pretty cool sandbox for something that came out in the mid-90s. Like anything involving animals, some amount of people went crazy for this shit, and a huge part of of the game was the ability to export and share your Norns with other people digitally. Players likened these Norns to their own children because whether they survived or died depended on how well you taught them language and to avoid danger. If they died, people would literally cry over it. In fact, the game even encourages you to treat them like your own kids and take responsibility for them. Another sick part of this was you could make custom objects for the game and share those digitally as well, as long as they adhered to the mechanics of the game. One such example, get this, would be something like a food that reduced histamine levels for a Norn having an allergic reaction. In other words, a fucking EpiPen of sorts. There were basically infinite uses for these custom objects. It's so cool. It's so cool because with the rules of the world and the way everything was balanced and the way the Norn's AI reacted to stimuli, some sweet emergent behavior would come up that was never programmed into the game. Like these Norns learning how to play catch with each other to increase happiness. I can absolutely see why people would become emotionally attached to these little guys. It makes sense. They feel alive in a way. So I get it, I do, but I can also see how this kind of thing would easily go too far and start gatekeeping the game. The whole point was that this was like a kind of a realistic virtual simulation of this tribe of animals, and death and pain and hardship is a natural part of that. But the people on these forums who were sharing their creatures like this were so attached that they meticulously bred Norns that could only feel happiness, no suffering ever, and they had no tolerance for anyone who wanted to explore something a little more grounded. There were legitimate discussions of quote-unquote ethical concerns and threats of violence against anyone having some cheeky fun by letting their Norns run wild. It was all a little bit hysterical and dramatic over, again, some ones and zeros on a computer screen. And as a result, one user took it upon himself to try and get everyone back down to earth, back down to reality again. As the author of the post puts it, he stood in opposition to the carefully curated safe space a lot of the players had created. He went completely and totally overboard, of course, but hey, there is no room for nuance and revolution. His name was AntiNorn, and the following is a direct reading of the write-up, which will be linked in the description. AntiNorn was amused by the vitriol a previous post had elicited, and had grown tired of a community that pretty much only posted cutesy romances between player Norns and uploaded custom objects that made sure they always felt happy and never experienced pain. He felt that side of the game had been fully explored. So, he created a Norn called Slave and offered her up for download, who he had trained to refer to the player hand as God. After I created her, I started hitting her constantly for about 5 minutes. Then, I taught her all the words so it would be easier to make her scared of her surroundings. After she knew all the words, I placed her in a small area, surrounded by the FF custom object, with 5 Grendels. I left her there for about 20 minutes, beating her when she attempted to defend herself from the Grendels. After she was sufficiently traumatized, I put her back in the garden. In the garden, I forced her to get, look, push, and pull everything around her, all the time, constantly beating her. I made her fear running, so I wouldn't have to deal with that little problem. You fellow torturers out there know how annoying it is to chase them down once they get away. I also forced her to eat weeds, rewarding her when she did so. At the time I exported her, she's a quivering mass of fear. She might eat, if you're lucky, but she probably won't survive long enough for food to do any good. You can download her by clicking below. Have fun. He also linked to a 30-second clip of Slave getting beaten to death by Grendels. As you can imagine, the rest of the community found this to be a little objectionable. Quote, large numbers of Norn fanatics were horrified by this and condemned him to the point of sending death threats. These included further castration threats, plans to inject his eyeballs with hydrogen peroxide, accusations of him being a demon, and descriptions of acid etching his entrails. So in retaliation, the horrified users downloaded Slave to try and rehabilitate her, and a few actually succeeded. However, when the rest of the Norns made a family with Slave, all their children inherited a strange sickness, and disease and death ran rampant. Turns out, AntiNorn, knowing the Puritans on the forums would never leave Slave to suffer, had bred a special gene into her where her blood was constantly turning into alcohol that then got passed onto any Norn who interacted with her. Some of the users hadn't backed up their saves either, so now they're stuck with permanently toxically drunk Norns. Absolutely diabolical. A masterstroke moment for AntiNorn. Some real, honest to God, 5D chess, 30 moves ahead supervillain shit. I could not stop fucking laughing at this, and it only gets better. I won't spoil the rest of it, and there's a lot that I've left out, so it's still very much worth reading, but I hate to say this, I'm kind of on the side of the edgelord this time. That was fucking amazing. It's not sadism for sadism's sake, but a genuinely funny and creative troll of some people taking a game way too seriously. There's definitely a time and a place for this kind of humor. Or we wouldn't have had that Flash game where you just beat up a guy, or the immensely popular Dumb Ways to Die videos. The whole time, AntiNorn was very tongue-in-cheek about the whole thing, and that's what makes this a great fucking story. There's no actual malice here, just a complete piss take out of the entire situation. And not only is this story superbly well written, showing off what humans are capable of when they aren't adhering to a greedy algorithm, but the human spirit also resonates in AntiNorn, who tore down the sandcastle of the other snotty children simply because he could. Dude, nothing more human than that. All right, I lied. I said my favorite post wasn't about video games, but it was. It's like saying Michael Phelps wasn't born to swim. It's like saying Dolly Parton wasn't born a beautiful angel. I was born to talk about video games. It's my birthright. And I'd also love to talk about these posts all day, but I can't. We didn't even get into the stories where the troublemakers fake their own deaths. I'm serious, it happens like way more often than you'd even think. Let me know if a part 2 is something that you'd like to see. So there you go. If you're like me and you can't stand the rising tide of AI slop, rage bait, bullshit content that only exists to monetize views, r/HobbyDrama might be the cure. When the most liked post of all time on here has less than 20,000 upvotes, and any random TikTok can get 100,000 views on any given day, you know that nothing here was made to farm engagement. It's just passionate people who want to share what they're passionate about. Real people with real feelings who want to make you laugh along and gasp in shock and have a good time learning about stuff that you would never have heard of otherwise. So I'm giving this a rating of decent ROI. There's so much good here, and it ages really well. Nothing really gets lost to time here the same way it does with like viral trends and a 24-hour news cycle. I would give it the double S tier of slappy stash, but honestly, in some of the less popular posts, the writing gets a little too self-indulgent and I'm just gonna say Tumblr-y, where like everything is exaggerated for effect until you have no scope of emotion anymore. So it gets a decent ROI, and I think that fits. Do you have any crazy drama in your niche hobby? Leave a comment letting me know. I play Magic the Gathering and Warhammer, and those have no shortage of posts on HobbyDrama, trust me. I would contribute a post myself, but I'm living in a utility closet with no friends, not much to write about. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of Internet Buried Treasure. After the meltdown that I had in the last episode, I really needed something to like cheer me up after that. Check that out if you're curious. If you enjoyed your tour, leave a tip for your guide in the form of a like. And if you'd like to visit again, make sure to hit subscribe and ding the bell. That way I know I've served you well. All right, cadets, that's all I have for you this time. Slip slap. This has been SlappyPat.